watching Main Street Media. I am here up at the Capitol in Capitol Hill in Utah, waiting to hear from one of our guests today, who's going to be Ken Ivory, Representative Ken Ivory from House District 40, if I remember correctly. Representative Ivory will join us in about 25 minutes and discuss a couple of the bills that he's been working on. Also, one bill of import. Oh, let me tell you a little bit about Representative Ivory's bills first. HB 29, HB 29. The floor sponsor is Ken Ivory, Representative Ivory, and so that's the bill sponsor. The floor sponsor is Senator Todd Weiler. This is entitled Sensitive Material Review Amendments, one of the bills that Representative Ivory is going to go over with us today. And this is a continuation of some of the previous bills that Representative Ivory has brought to the Utah House or to the Utah legislature, having to deal with sensitive materials. And so this is pornographic material that's on school library shelves or even in the classrooms. And those being allowed even at the elementary age level. It's just sickening, the things that have been allowed by the school districts and the school system, all under the guise of free speech. So we're going to hear about that bill. Another one that is shaking things up here is House Bill 398, if I remember that correctly. I'm going to pull it up here really quick. Go over just a quick synopsis of it. But essentially what it does is it will open up the legal ability to use gold and silver as currency within the state limits of Utah, but expanding it to the point where it's not just gold and silver that's printed by the U.S. government. Or not just printed, but stamped by the U.S. government, but it would actually also include gold and silver bullion and other forms of gold and silver to be used as currency without the stamp of approval from the United States federal government. So this is a game changer. We're going to hear about how that will affect Utah and the citizens here and what that's going to do for our economy, how it's going to help out. So while we're waiting, I want to go over another bill that is, two bills that are coming up. House Bill 111. The bill sponsor is Representative Tim Jimenez from Tooele. And essentially what this does is it bans, which is a great thing for the local economy, or not just the local, but the economy around Utah. DEI has been a hot button nationally. DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Currently, there are many employers that require their employees as a condition of employment to take DEI classes or DEI instruction. And they basically, some employers require not only them to take this instruction, but to also subscribe to this instruction, that if they're not going to follow it, they are no longer able to be employed by these companies. So as a condition of employment. And that doesn't sit well with me, nor does it sit well with many Utahns or people nationally. This is some sort of groupthink where people are required to be a part of a group, in this case, an employment office or an employer. You have to subscribe to a certain way of thinking. It's totally demolishes the First Amendment and the right to free speech, as well as free thinking, to act in a certain way that's against your conscience. is it's no way to live. That's something that the founding fathers they subscribed to, is this idea that you should not act against your own will in this regard, and that free speech is essential to a free people. So let me pull that up here really quick. I have so many bills up on my browser right now. Let's see. All right, House Bill 111, HB 111, does not have a floor sponsor yet. Employment training requirement limitations. The summary, the synopsis, this bill prohibits, for purposes of employment discrimination, certain training or other requirements that compel or require adherence to or belief in certain concepts. So again, a form of brainwashing or a form of groupthink that everybody needs to think a certain way in order to be employed at a certain institution. So what this bill does, if I can borrow from some of its verbiage here, it would make it unlawful to subject an individual as a condition of employment, membership, certification, licensing, credentialing, etc., to training, instruction, or any other required activity that espouses, promotes, advances, or compels the individual to believe or profess a belief in any of the following concepts and constitutes discrimination based on race, color, sex, or national origin. And then it goes through what those concepts are. And basically, it says that you can't discriminate based on race, color, sex, or national origin. And which is essentially what DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion classes, have been teaching. They've been teaching the exact opposite of what they claim to profess, or what they claim to teach. The claim is that they want to have DEI, those who teach DEI, claim that they're trying to get rid of discrimination. But by doing so, they teach discrimination and how certain groups should be discriminated against in order to make things equal, fair, and balanced. And this is just so wrong on so many levels. So I'm watching this bill closely. It will be in committee today. Let's see here. Another bill that I want to go over is HB 164. And this has some relevance to what we're going to talk about today. The bill sponsor on HB 164 is Tyler Clancy, one of the youngest representatives to ever serve in the Utah legislature. And the floor sponsor is Senator Mike Kennedy. Both are amazing individuals. I want to tell a little bit about what this code will do. It's very simple. It's very easy. It makes modifications to the Uniform Commercial Code by making, what's it called? The CBDCs is what it's called. And so CBDCs as an actual currency. It prohibits central bank digital currency, is what CBD stands for, from being a specie legal tender. So it's not a valid legal tender in the state of Utah. So this kind of gets ahead of the game. There are a lot of central banks that have been considering CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, as a form of changing our monetary system to where that could be a form of legal tender. Of course, it's completely and wholly digitized. It's not even printed paper anymore. We know that back in the 70s that Richard Nixon took us off of the gold standard. And any printed money, which is essentially an IOU, could be redeemed in gold until the 1970s when the gold standard was taken away. These paper notes were then considered actual money paper money was considered actual money and wasn't backed by anything, even to a certain percentage. Now this takes us another step further. Now that we have this, we live in a new age of digitized everything. Everything is digital. Even money should be digital, to be created out of thin air, not backed by anything, and that wealth can just be created by the touch of a button, which is very concerning, because if a central bank is able to make money out of thin air with these CBDCs, then inflation would just go absolutely through the roof. And all sorts of conditions can be placed on whether you use your money or how you can use your money. They can control if you're able to access your free speech, if you use your money to go exercise your Second Amendment rights. If you purchase campaign signs, again, as free speech, or if you donate to a certain campaign, all of these sorts of political ramifications would happen with CBDCs. If it's not an approved candidate, or if it's somebody who's considered radical in the minds of extremists, they often see the other side, the other extreme, as the radicals, and they're the ones that make complete sense. You can see opposing sides using this as a tool, as a weapon against their political opponents. Think of business and how CBDCs, if money is created out of thin air, or currency, money could be given to the winners and losers. We see what happens during these boom bust cycles, that certain people are considered too big to fail, and they're given more money so that they can stay solvent, while the little guys, or those who don't have the same opinion, or who might not be in the same club or group, they're left to feel the full force of the markets and default. CBDCs are not a good thing in so many different ways. And so we need to oppose this. So I love this bill by Representative Tyler Clancy, and Senator Mike Kennedy. Just to read a little bit more of what this does. That's it. It gives the definitions of what a CBDC is. So CBDC means a digital currency, a digital medium of exchange, or digital monetary unit of account issued by the United States Federal Reserve System, a federal agency, a foreign government, a foreign central bank, or a foreign reserve system. So anything that's just created out of thin air, CBDCs, will not be considered money within the state of Utah. We need to support this bill now to get ahead of any sort of atrocities, financial atrocities that can be enacted. If we can make CBDCs illegal here in the state of Utah, we will be ahead of the game and set the example for so many other states around the country to do so as well. We Americans like to be able to hold our money. All right. So that will be in committee today as well. That will be in the House Economic Development and Workforce Services Committee. If you would like to influence the outcome of this decision, I encourage you to not just reach out to Representative Clancy himself or Senator Mike Kennedy, but I also encourage you to reach out to those members of the House Economic Development and Workforce Service Committee. And those individuals would be Representative Steinquist, Representative Strong, Representative Ballard, Representative Cutler, Representative Jack, Representative Briscoe, Representative DeFay, Representative Wheatley, Representative Chu, and Representative Gardner. So if you want your voices to be known, please reach out to them and let them know that you stand against CBDCs and you are for HB 164 and you want it to pass to make CBDCs illegal in the state of Utah. Going back to House Bill 111, again, this is Representative Tim Jimenez's bill that will make DEI instruction that it's illegal for an employer to cause a person to believe certain things as a condition of employment, then I encourage you to reach out to those individuals as well who serve on the committee. Let me get that committee for you really quick on who you can contact. Let me see here. This will be the House Business and Labor Standing Committee, and that will be today at 2 o'clock. Again, 2 o'clock is the beginning of this committee, which is also the same time as the other committee that HB 164 will be heard. So please reach out to these individuals. These are all representatives. Representative Albrecht, Burton, King, Peterson, that would be Representative Tom Peterson, Representative Thurston, Brammer, Dunnigan, Matthews, Schultz, Wilcox, Brooks, Hawkins, Musselman, and Tusher. The chair and the vice chair are Representatives Malloy and Representative White. So reach out to those individuals if those are your legislators, or even if they're not your legislators, they are on the committee that will make the decision on this today at 2 o'clock. Reach out and let them know that you do support HB 111 and that you would like that to be favorably passed in committee today. Let's see, I'm expecting Representative Ivory to join us at any moment. He is not here quite yet. Let's see if we have any other bills that I'm tracking. Okay, while we're still waiting for the good representative to join us, I do want to go over another bill that I am watching. This is House Bill 249. The bill sponsor is Walt Brooks, Representative Walt Brooks. And essentially, the title of it is Utah Legal Personhood Amendments. So this regulates how or what personhood means, or how a person gains that personhood. It says here. Okay, so it addresses legal personhood. Notwithstanding any other provision of law, a government entity may not grant legal personhood to, nor recognize legal personhood in, and this is kind of funny actually. It's funny in that we actually have to have this conversation because this is a conversation that's going on. So that the government may not grant legal personhood to, nor recognize legal personhood in artificial intelligence, an inanimate object like your pet rock, a body of water, i.e., the Great Salt Lake, land, real property, atmospheric gases, an astronomical object, the weather, a plant, a non-human animal, or any other member of a taxonomic domain that is not a human being. Pretty self-explanatory. It makes sense. It's sad that we're at this point in time in our culture where we actually have to have this conversation and we have to put it into legal code on what a person is. But bravo to Representative Brooks. I think that this is something that needs to be done because of some of the conversations that are going on about giving the Great Salt Lake personhood status, which is absolutely ridiculous. So I will be watching this bill. It will be in committee today for those that want to view the committee or view the hearing or make your notes or comments heard. This will be in the House Business and Labor Standing Committee, and the committee members to contact on that would be Representative Malloy, Representative White, and those others who are in that committee. Okay, now our guest with us today is Representative Ken Ivory. He will be joining us here in just a moment. But to give a good review of what we'll be talking about today, he has two great bills that are up and coming. One is actually going to be heard in committee today about the appropriateness of, or concerning the appropriateness of material, sensitive material in the school classroom and school libraries. Another bill that the representative is working on is House Bill 348, if I remember correctly. And so it looks like the good representative has joined us. We'll add him to the conversation, and let's see what this bill or these bills are all about. Representative Ivory, it's great to have you.
Hello, Whit. Great to be with you. Yeah, we've got some exciting things coming up. So we're trying to make wealth accessible to everyone, not just the rich, right? Real wealth has always been held and stored and transacted in precious metals, right? Gold and silver. That's God's money going back 5,000 plus years. And, you know, it's kind of not really been obtainable to the average person. And so what we're doing with House Bill 348 is we make gold accessible and functional for everyone. So the $10 or the $10 million you store in gold or silver today will, if it's the $10, it'll buy the same hamburger and meal at the restaurant today and next year and 10 years from now and 100 years from now, because gold and silver hold their value where we know what's been happening with the dollar. It's our wealth, as you know, our wealth, our earnings and our savings, our labor, our sweat, our pursuit of happiness, which is stored and embodied in money, has been eroded right out from under us. It's being actually stolen by the printing of the dollar, and most people don't even realize that that's happening.
Right. Inflation is called the silent tax or the hidden tax, right? Yeah, I've read through your bill. I love it. I've been to your meetings. I think that this is a game changer for the citizens of Utah. And like you pointed out, it's a good way to fight against inflation. So how does inflation happen? You mentioned printing the dollar. Who causes inflation?
Wow,
how does it affect us?
You know, there's a great story I just posted on my Facebook page. In 1971, Lyndon Johnson, and then following him, Richard Nixon, had been printing dollars to pay for the Vietnam War and what was known then as the Great Society. And because after World War II, the United States was the dominant economy in the world, and the United States unseated the British pound as the world reserve currency. Everyone said, we want to trade in your currency. You're the economic powerhouse of the nation. We want to trade in your currency. And we said, great, the dollar is going to be directly convertible to gold, $35 to an ounce of gold. And that was the standard in the world. And we promised that we would have sufficient gold to back up the dollars. Well, in the 1960s, they just started printing and saying, hey, nobody will know. We can just, instead of going back and taxing people or borrowing more money, we'll just print a little more. Nobody will ever know. And that story is played out throughout all of human history. We'll water down the soup, we'll cut the quality a little bit. No one will ever know. But when it comes to money, that is our liberty. That is our life. That's what we have the representation of our work and our labor and our property, we put into something called money. And when it's convertible to gold and it's a fixed standard, it is money. Well, in 1971, because we'd been printing so many dollars, France and other European countries said, we want the gold instead of the dollars. And at one point, France even sent a destroyer to New York Harbor, loaded with pallets of dollars, and said, we want the gold. And President Nixon redeemed for them, but then shut the gold window and said, it's now closed. We're not going to ship off all of the gold in Fort Knox. And since 1971, we've never known what's in Fort Knox, but what we do know is they closed the gold window. And there was a lot of economic disruption from that period until 1973, when Henry Kissinger, who just passed away recently, he went to the Middle East and he said, look, here's the deal. We'll protect you. We'll defend you with our Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and we'll sell you military equipment if and only if you only sell oil for the dollar. They agreed to that. That's what became known as the petrodollar. And so all the world to buy oil had to have dollars. And our agreement was, we got caught with our hand in the cookie jar. We're not going to print more than there is oil. We're not going to print out of control again. Of course, we know the rest of that story. It's like Golem's ring, right? I mean, nobody's ever able to keep that promise where I can just dip in a little bit, nobody will know. And what we know since then, they have been printing dollars massively. And so when you think about where does the value of a dollar that's just printed, digitally created come from? Well, it comes from every other dollar in existence. And so as they create a new $1 trillion to give COVID stimulus, and they create a new $1 trillion to pay the interest, or $2 trillion to fund the deficit, the overspend every year, they quite literally just steal the value from everything we've ever saved and everything we earn or will ever earn. It's the most regressive, the most destructive tax of all. And now we're at a place where the currency from 1971 is about 85 to 90% less valuable than it was when they did it. In fact, just a quick anecdote, and then I'll have questions and go another direction. But in 1971, with the average home cost $17,000. We're talking a lot up here about affordable housing. We've spent about $1 billion over the last 4 or 5 sessions to try to make housing affordable as a state government. 1971, average home $17,000 or 17,000 grams of gold. Today, the average home is more than $600,000. That 17,000 doesn't even come close to a down payment, but the 17,000 grams of gold buy you 2 homes today. That's what the printing of money has done to the value of our dollar. And so with this bill, we allow Utahns, everyone can play. You can buy $10 or $10 million of gold or silver, and you preserve the purchasing power of your earnings and your savings and your life that you put into that. And we make our ability to transact in real money again, and not just currency.
Right. It's historically known. It's a historically known fact that gold and silver, both, they preserve their value over the long term as a hedge up against inflation. And that's why governments hoard gold. That's why they purchase gold. And that's why so many countries around the world right now are, even though the price of gold is over $2,000 an ounce, they're still hoarding and purchasing as much gold as they possibly can, because they know something big is coming. They know that some economic hard times are on their way. It's just a matter of when and not if. So is this bill going to solve all of our problems or financial problems as a country, or is this just a way does it only fight inflation? How can we do this? Because at every historically, a person cannot just take an ounce of gold, go to Walmart and say, I'd like to buy my groceries. So how does this do this? How does it make it accessible to the common consumer?
Yeah, in fact, I'd like to say this will make all your wildest dreams come true, but I
And
can't say
vote for
that, of
Pedro,
course,
right?
right? Vote for Pedro, that's right. But what it will do is it will give everyone a choice. And that's what we're talking about. We're giving real choices to real people in Utah to say, I want to take the representation of my earning and saving and labor and property, and I want to store it in gold and silver in a way that is functional and transactional. Now, that can mean a number of things. So as the state of Utah, we're not going to predetermine what that is. So through the treasurer's office, we'll set standards where whatever the transactional mechanism is, the gold, it has to be backed by a fixed weight of gold. The gold has to be vaulted in Utah. It's got to be insured and audited in Utah. It's got to be accessible to that. You have to be able to redeem out into gold or US currency on demand. And so those are some of the standards that we're putting in. And then some of the ways that could play out. The app that you saw at the meeting that we had last week, there's a British company called Glint Pay. And they're already doing this in the United Kingdom, but not with the kinds of standards and things that we'll have to protect people from demonetization, debanking, like happened with the Canadian truckers, and the things that they're eyeing with the CBDCs, that they want to get control of money so they can control the conduct of people. But basically, you could have a physical representation of fractional gold, like the gold backs. You could have an electronic representation of actual gold, like the Glint Pay, where you've got an app and you can buy, 5, 10, 5 million, 10 million of gold or silver. You've got it on an app. You can see exactly what the amount is against the dollar, and you can buy a soda pop with it, or you could buy a house, but it's immediately transactional and functional.
And I think that the technology behind Glint Pay, and they're not the only ones. There are others that are out there. The technology is just amazing. That's there. The CEO, who I was able to sit down with and talk with and learn about this whole system, it's amazing because it's tied in with a big credit card company, and so you can just it is actual gold held in a vault, tied to a credit card from this major credit card company that tells you in real time how much that gold is worth or that bullion is worth. And then you can deduct that from your account as you go purchase something from Walmart. It's amazing. And you mentioned gold backs as another way, not digitally, but as you can hand a bill over to some of these companies around the state of Utah. That's another way that individuals can hedge their against inflation. And there we have a gold back right there. Current value,
example,
that's
right.
$1. So what is that? About $17
Yeah,
right
so
now?
this is 1/1000th of a troy ounce. And so this at current exchange rates, this is about $4 to $4.50. And
Okay.
and yeah, there are thousands of Utah companies that accept these. In fact, one of the appropriations chairs that we had talked to about this last week, over the weekend, he went to get a haircut, and the barber had a sign, "We proudly accept goldbacks." And he was like, "Oh man, I wish I had some things." I said, "Well, you mentioned that you had some gold coins. You can just take out your pocket knife and shave off a few flecks and pay them that way. Or we can have a system that allows you to trade functionally, transactionally, because obviously it's impractical to think you're going to break off a bit of a gold bar or a fraction of a coin. But like you mentioned, with technology today, we have the ability to have that gold physically sitting in a location in Utah that's secured, that's audited, that's insured, and your gold is tied to an exact weight amount, or your representation in the app is tied to an exact weight amount of gold that then you can transact. If you buy some, your name, right? Your digital ID is put on that additional amount of gold. If you sell some, then it's debited away from that actual gold. And so then if we, heaven forbid, we have some kind of a meltdown scenario, whatever it may be, that gold's in Utah. It's accessible in Utah. The ability to get your hands on the actual physical gold is in Utah. And so there's that security mechanism. The other part is we are seeing, unfortunately, right? We saw with the Canadian truckers, we saw they shut off their money. They shut off the ability for people to send money to them. We're seeing with the World Economic Forum and those types, I think it's something like 97% of all of the central banks are planning to have a central bank digital currency in place by like 2028. And if you read some of the things that they've said, or there's some videos out there where they actually gleefully say, we're so excited about this. This is going to allow us to control how many cheeseburgers Whit eats, or how many miles you drive in your car, or the flights that you take. And then heaven forbid that you may buy guns or ammunition. Mm-hmm. And they believe that by controlling people's money, they control what we do. I mean, it is a very direct control mechanism that is just pure socialism. And in Utah, we're not going to go down that road. So, and again, this is simply giving people the choice. If someone wants to have the central bank digital currency, or to continue to transact in the dollars that they're devaluing by the minute, printing more, then by all means. But if they want to have a choice to store their labor, their time, their earnings, their savings, their property in real money that has been real money for 5,000 years, then that's what this bill does. It also would allow people to pay taxes in gold and silver, which advances the argument that gold is a currency and not an asset subject to capital gains. And then it would allow us to store some percentage of the rainy day fund in gold and silver, like all the central banks are doing at record pace. And then with an income to the state in gold, it would allow us to do bonding. The revenue bonds that we do for schools and highways, we could denominate bonds in gold. So imagine you're looking to buy municipal bonds, and there's a 30-year bond denominated in dollars, and right next to it, there's a 30-year bond denominated in gold. Which one do you think is going to hold its value 10 years, 20 years, 30 years out? And so that would substantially lower the cost of our debt service and save the state millions of dollars in debt service, and establish Utah as the world center for a gold economy. Did you know that our number one import, our number one export, you know what that is?
What is it?
Gold, both accounts.
Oh.
It's our number one export by amount.
Nationally, or in our state?
In Utah.
Okay.
Right, in Utah. Gold is our number one export by far, many times over. It's also our number one import. And many people would ask, well, how can you do that? Nevada sends all of the gold that it mines to Utah to be refined, as do many other states. We've got refineries, we've got vaults, we've got all of the infrastructure for this right here in Utah.
And it makes sense that Utah would be this tip of the spear when it comes to these sorts of matters. Now, in reading your bill, Utah already allows for gold and silver to, Representative Ivory, it looks like we lost you. Are you there, Representative Ivory? All right, well, while we wait for Representative Ivory to come back, hopefully he'll be able to come back with us. As I was saying, in the bill, it points out that gold and silver are already allowed to be used on a transactional basis. You can already use gold and silver as a currency. What the bill does is it allows that to open up to actually not just be gold and silver that has the government stamp of approval. This would also include that's minted by the United States federal government. It also would allow for gold and silver that's minted by other sources as well. And we would call that bullion. Looks like we have Representative Ivory back with us. Representative, thanks for coming back.
So sorry. I jump into the majority caucus to talk about this this state sovereignty bill. I'm the floor sponsor for
Okay.
Scott Sandel's bill on that. I need to hop in on that. Shouldn't take long. I can either come back or we can continue at another time, whatever is most convenient for you.
You know what? That's another amazing bill. Senator Sandel is my senator. Please go ahead. I'll finish up here with our listeners, and thanks for being on today.
Thank you very much. House Bill 348, House Bill 29.
Okay.
Thanks, Whit.
Thank you, sir. Well, it was great having Representative Ivory on with us today. And I'm really looking forward to a favorable recommendation for both of his bills to pass through committee. We need to, just as the representative said, we need to make sure that Utah, which is already at the tip of the spear, advances that ability for us to use gold and silver on a transactional basis, whether it's through technology as a digital currency that's backed by gold, real gold stored in a vault somewhere, or if it's, say, gold backs or something that you can physically hand over the counter and then be given change for. Another thing that we need to discuss, Representative Ivory brought it up briefly. He talked about CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, and there's a bill that's coming up. I believe it is, if I remember correctly, House Bill 138. The floor sponsor is Tyler Clancy, and the bill sponsor is Tyler Clancy, and the floor sponsor is Mike Kennedy, if I remember correctly. And what that would do is it would actually make CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, illegal as in the state of Utah to be used as digital or as currency, as transactional currency. So looking forward to both Representative Ivory's bill, House Bill 348, as well as Representative Clancy's bill, House Bill 138 to pass. And we talked a little bit earlier, and the good representative mentioned it again just before he left, HB 29, that's going to be his sensitive materials bill. Again, we're having to readdress this issue where pornography is still allowed in the schools. We need to get it out of the schools. Pornography has been shown by study after study that it damages the mind, especially of a young child. We need to protect our children and not allow this access, or even not just allow it, but promote it, even in some cases. We need to stop the promotion and allowance of these materials in our public school education system. If any of those books that were on a school shelf were taken off of that school shelf, taken outside, and then shown to a kid, that individual that showed that pornographic material to a child would be put in prison. And yet it's allowed on our school shelves, and it needs to stop. And so another bill that the good representative mentioned that he was just going into a meeting for so that he could speak on behalf of, let's see, Senator Scott Sandel from District 1 has a bill. Let me see here. The good representative mentioned it. Let's see, SB 29, is it? No. Let me find it really quick. Oh, darn. I do not see it here. Well, anyway, what it does is I will keep looking for the number while I explain what it does. What it will do is it will let the federal government, it will allow the state government to exercise its constitutional right given to the state within the 10th Amendment. And basically what the 10th Amendment does is it says that any power that is not given specifically within the Constitution to the federal government, if it's not listed in the Constitution, then it is not a federal power. And that all of those other powers are given directly to the states. That it's the state's ability to, or prerogative to to take care of all of the other matters that are not listed in the Constitution. And I will have to look up that bill number. I'm not seeing it here. Okay. Let's see. Okay, here it is. Senate Bill SB 57, Utah Constitutional Sovereignty Act. This is another really good bill. I talked about it on the show last week on Saturday. But what this does is, let's see here. It enacts the Utah Constitutional Sovereignty Act, and which is the name of the bill. So this is brand new code. It's brand new definitions, and it essentially allows Utah to exercise its constitutional rights when a federal law contradicts the Utah constitutional rights. So if the federal government ever comes in and tells the state government in Utah what to do or how to do it, and the state says, no, you don't have the authority to tell us what to do in these matters, because it's not listed in the Constitution, the federal Constitution, as one of your powers to tell us what to do, then Utah will have a process to appeal that, and will actually be able to avoid any negative ramifications that would come from enacting that law. So it puts the process in place in order to appeal. So really looking forward to that one too. So I want to thank the good representative for joining us today. He's a very busy individual and works hard up here on the Capitol Hill, and puts forward a lot of really good legislation. So until next time, thanks for joining us, and I hope to see you again.